Welcome to Enemies from War to Wisdom. Why do we need enemies? From intimate relationships to politics, tribalism, and community, we cannot seem to stop dehumanizing each other. Chronic conflicts in our families, societies, and nations seem inevitable. In this podcast, we analyze human hostilities from the most mundane to the most sophisticated. We apply psychology, psychoanalysis, art, spirituality, and relational theory in conversation about belonging and otherness. Each program will reach for a fresh wisdom that shows us how to step back from creating enemies in our lives. I'm your host, Eleanor Johnson, a videographer and artist with Emma Troupe, an experimental theater group in New York City, and I am here with my co-host, Paula Young-Eisendrath, who is a psychologist, Jungian analyst, author, and speaker. We approach our ideas each from our own worlds, but always from the spirit and teaching of Buddhism, of which we are lifelong practitioners. In today's podcast, we're going to be speaking about free speech and right speech, following the path of non-hatred. There are many public debates about free speech in terms of limiting hate speech that includes insults, hostility, or slander against others, especially vulnerable others. In today's podcast, we'll discuss how speech, the way we speak to ourselves and others, plays a central role in ceding or avoiding war and chaos. We will compare free speech as defended in the United States Constitution with right speech as promoted in the Eightfold Noble Path of the Buddhist practice. Right speech in the Buddhist practice is divided into four components: abstaining from false speech, abstaining from slanderous speech, abstaining from harsh speech, and abstaining from idle chatter. Speech and the written word are immensely powerful in creating wisdom or destruction. In today's podcast, we will talk about how to develop and discern our speech so that we can engage in non-hatred at all times, opening the door to humane treatment of others and ourselves. Welcome, Polly.
Hi, Eleanor. It sounds today like we have a very serious topic. It feels a little more, yes, I would say, ponderous than usual.
Right.
But it's partly
very timely.
It's partly because, of the need right now for people to begin to pay really close attention to everything surrounding speech. That is the ability to speak in groups, publicly, freely, and also the censorship of all sorts of things online, where companies are censoring individuals, journalists, and so on, with the alliance of the U.S. government. So, the censorship through Google, through...
Those are the companies you're referring to.
Yes, I'm talking about Google, I'm talking about YouTube, about Twitter, and other platforms that are connected to... And Facebook, yes, and that are connected to Google, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So there are a number of different platforms that function now pretty much for the general public as a way of people getting their news, and keeping informed. And those platforms are heavily into censorship so that only a particular line of thinking is guaranteed to stay posted on various areas of concern. And those areas of concern prominently have to do with health, with governance, with various aspects of history, some aspects of literature, some aspects of film and movies. So all of those things are being censored, and they're being censored according to a particular line of thinking that is considered to be the right way to think or the right way to speak. And I don't want to get into the content because I'm not really that interested in the content. I'm more interested in the importance of speech and what speech is and how speech interacts and interfaces with truth, and how confused we can be if we cannot speak freely and be able to examine our minds, because our minds often operate by narratives.
Right.
So all of these things go into free speech. It's like, how clearly can you think? How can you examine your own assumptions? How do you know what you know? And how can you change your mind?
Right.
Yeah.
Really, really important.
Very important.
And I think today people are well aware of the damages of all the cancel culture and people who have normally been able to speak their mind who are being penalized in tragic ways right now.
Oh, yes, tragic ways, and also really depriving us of actually knowing and understanding how to find the truth.
Right.
Because each one of us has to be able to discern what truth is, to follow a path of truth, in order to feel aligned with reality. So truth, the big function of truth is that it aligns you with reality. If you, I was talking about truth this morning with Arthur Samuelson at the Rose Center, and I asked him in the beginning, how do you feel? How do you experience truth? Like because he said, he discerns truth. He sort of smells it out. He can't say what it is. So I say, well, how do you know when you've heard the truth? And he said, after some thought, I relax. That is true. That is accurate. When you know the truth and you have that experience, this is true, it causes you to relax. And that happens in dialogue therapy, it happens in individual therapy. So truth aligns us with reality, which gives us equanimity in our bodies so that we can be relaxed. Equanimity is the ability to accept your experience. So you relax, you're open to experience when you are actually hearing and being in the truth. And so sometimes truth is without speech, like if you have an enlightenment experience or you experience the boundless compassion of whatever your divine, being is, if it's God or if it's the divine sort of formless self of the Buddha mind or whatever. When you experience that, it's often wordless. But when you experience truth in an ordinary way, in an everyday walking around way, okay, I've got that now, that's true. So that relaxation in your body is the way you recognize the experience of truth. And to get there, you have to get through language often.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of reminds me, I think of that feeling more as like, I'm in, the experience of mutuality, and there's receptivity, and there's this movement and dialogue and expression happening between, say, self and other, or even self and self. Truth for me is, anyway, it's a little bit more complicated in terms of, what is the foundation upon which your truth rests, in a world as diverse as ours right now.
Well, the foundation really is you.
Yeah.
It's you as a human being. You're a human being.
Well, that's a truth.
That's the truth. So you have a human truth. You're not having the truth of the frog or the truth of the dog.
A human truth. That's a very great point, Polly.
The human
Thank
truth.
You. Yes.
And so humans actually determine a lot through language.
Yeah. I think we forget that we're humans.
Well, a lot of times people forget that they're limited at all,
right.
And so they are definitely limited. Right. And as a human being in a world where other humans are also talking a lot,
right,
you may have difficulty discriminating and discerning what is true.
Right.
But the truth itself does not change.
Yes.
It's your perception.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I like that a lot. It's just been reminding me about the human truth, that we're human beings. I mean, I was thinking, my mind was somewhere else altogether. But that's a wonderful.
In talking about truth, just a couple of quotes from Nelson Mandela, that truth is the substance of all morality. It's not morality itself, it's the substance of the morality.
So that foundation,
truth is God, and truth overrides all of our plans. Reality as a human being is imperfect, impermanent, and impersonal in the sense that the causes and conditions go beyond your control.
Right.
So that will always be in the nature of conventional truth. And then there's an ultimate truth, which is the non-separation of all of space-time. Everything in space-time is unified into a unity. And human beings can experience that unity. And they experience it as enlightenment, sometimes people call it. That is a kind of divine light. Or as a
religious
divine love, yeah,
or religious conviction, or
the
spiritual
conviction.
Yes,
the deep sense of being connected deeply to something that is not you, that is not your ego, that is not personal.
Right.
So the nature of being here, of the impermanence and the imperfectibility of space-time, and the impersonal nature of the unity of it, those have to be a part of a human truth, just keeping that in mind.
Yes.
And then there are other things about human truth. As we move through this, I will be trying to talk about that in regard to speech, because we're really talking. Right. So do you want to go over again the components of right speech from a Buddhist perspective? Let's go through some right speech, and then we'll go to free speech.
So here you were mentioning right speech from the Eightfold Noble Path as divided into 4 components: abstaining from false speech, abstaining from slanderous speech, abstaining from harsh or divisive speech, and abstaining from idle chatter.
Right. What is right speech trying to do? It's trying to make you conscious of the implications of what you say. And the Buddha taught very clearly, not just what you say to others, but what you say to yourself.
Right.
So noble silence is supposed to go on in your own mind as well as in the world at times when you're not speaking, to be able to silence your mind. But then when you are speaking, to follow these disciplines will keep you then aligned with truth.
Right. And again, from a Buddhist perspective, what is the foundation for right speech is right intention.
Right intention, and yet there's a way that right speech, well, it starts with right view, right intention, and then right speech. And so, but the right speech is a particular kind of playing out into the world of what is called prajna, or the wisdom function. So again, to kind of just take a little sidebar, human beings have the capacity to plug in to like a fountain of wisdom that comes through them simply by, you could call it your intuition or creativity, but it comes to you. You don't think it up. And in order to connect to that fountain of wisdom, you have to be aligned with truth. And so right speech is trying to align you, and it's trying to align you by, since speech is an action that you're doing, so you first have the right view, then the right intention,
and then right speech.
And then the right speech. The right speech is like the expression of that.
Yeah.
So I think it might be a good time if you want to read the thing about the path of the Bodhisattva, or you were going to read something else.
Well, I wanted to just read from one of the Buddhist teachers, which I thought was so clear when he said right intention leads to right speech. Speech comes from the heart, so you orientate the heart properly, and then what comes out of the mouth is right speech.
Right.
And I thought that was very Buddhistic. I liked it.
You liked it.
I liked it, yeah. I liked it.
Because you like things with heart.
Yes, I do.
You like
totally
the word. You like that word heart. Right. And so,
I do.
Because I would tend to use the word mind where you use the word heart. And of course, in the original Sanskrit, the mind and the heart are the same.
Yeah.
They're not separated. So, one of us uses more mind, the other one uses heart, but they are the same because they are the source of wisdom, the heart mind. And so, they're never separated. So if you clarify your mind, you're clarifying your heart. If you clarify your heart, you're clarifying your mind. Yeah, it's so different from the West.
But this piece from the do I pronounce his name right? Bhikkhu Bodhi.
Bhikkhu Bodhi. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's interpretation
of right speech.
Of what the Buddha said about the grave importance of right speech. So if you are following the Mahayana path of the Bodhisattva, what is your complete and utter intention, if you're on the Bodhisattva path, is to save all beings.
Right.
That's what you've promised to do. Save all beings. And how are you going to do that? Right. Because obviously you're one little person. You are going to learn this kind of infinite compassion. And how are you going to learn that kind of compassion? by following a path of truth.
Right.
This is more right view for the Bodhisattva path in relation to speech.
Okay.
Because it's about speech.
Okay. Right. We'll have you unpack it, Holly.
Yes.
Okay. It is said that in the course of his long training for enlightenment over many lives, a bodhisattva can break all the moral precepts except the pledge to speak the truth. The reason for this is very profound and reveals that the commitment to truth has a significance transcending the domain of ethics and even mental purification, taking us to the domains of knowledge and being. Truthful speech provides, in the sphere of interpersonal communication, a parallel to wisdom in the sphere of private understanding. The two are respectively the outward and the inward modalities of the same commitment to what is real. Wisdom consists in the realization of truth, and truth is not just a verbal proposition, but the nature of things as they are. To realize truth, our whole being has to be brought into accord with actuality, with things as they are, which requires that in communication with others we respect things as they are by speaking the truth. Truthful speech establishes a correspondence between our own inner being and the real nature of phenomena, allowing wisdom to rise up and fathom their real nature. Thus, much more than an ethical principle, devotion to truthful speech is a matter of taking our stand on reality rather than illusion, on the truth grasped by wisdom rather than the fantasies woven by desire. Brilliant.
Well, it's very comprehensive and gives you the deeper understanding of right speech. And so, a lot of times people feel like speech is something that's kind of trivial as compared to actions.
Exactly.
And we've talked about it on the podcast that, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can only hurt me, only hurt me. But actually speech is in many ways as powerful as any action, particularly written words, because they last.
Yes.
They go on.
Yes.
And so what this passage is saying, and I want to put it in perspective for everything that we're going to say about speech, including free speech, is that in order to grasp the truth of our lives, we have to discipline our speech.
Right.
And this disciplined speech has to also, if you're going to follow the Bodhisattva path, it cannot be that you just discipline it personally. You have to look at what is the truth. To speak the truth is actually different from just not lying. And what this passage is saying is that in all of the lifetimes that the Bodhisattva is actually preparing to bring this compassion to the world, that Bodhisattva can break the precepts of not to kill, of not to steal, of not to, there are different kinds of speech precepts, but, they can break all of the idle chatter, harsh chatter, and so on. And the Bodhisattva can also break other precepts, but the only precept that cannot be broken in all of the lifetimes, if you want to stay on that path of enlightenment, is the speech precept. You have to stick with speech. Why? So again, why would the Buddha be teaching that speaking the truth is more important than killing? Because once you distort the truth through speech, all of the other immoralities, all of the other ethical problems can flow from that and flow readily from that. And so that's another way of thinking about what Julian Assange has said about lying, that lying is the basis of war. Truth is the basis of peace. And the reason that's the case is that when you actually experience the truth, you relax. You align with reality. And also, when you're feeling relaxed like that, you can be interested in and engage with other people and what they are saying and thinking. And so the only option that human beings have to ultimately understand what's called conventional truth in the Buddhist world. So it's not ultimate truth, which is the the complete union of everything.
That's right.
But
yes.
Conventional truth, the only option we
reality.
have, is speaking to each other,
right.
Because no individual can know exactly what to do here because of the imperfectibility of this world. So as we move through this world, in order to solve our problems as humans, we have to debate. We have to have dialogue. Right. We have to argue, because those are the only ways we find the truth, because we're limited as individuals. And so instead of doing those, though, what we do, and we've talked about this a lot, as humans, we actually create enemies.
That's right.
We cut off others,
right.
or we kill others,
right.
Try to get rid of that point of view.
Exactly.
And so that's where right speech and killing connect. So, war is always the result of lies, and peace is always the result of speaking the truth. Right. And so speaking the truth becomes the most important precept that you can follow, and one of the most difficult ones, because of the limited perspective we have as humans. And when we do have an enlightenment, or when we do sense the experience of total unity, it's unspeakable.
Right.
That we can't speak about.
Or even just the moment of having a real human experience with another is something of, the peace beyond understanding, or a quality of expression that is just has a reverence to it, has a radiance to it. It's such a heightened experience within relative reality.
Yes,
and it's something,
yes.
When we say, to be fully human is extraordinary. I mean, it's so rare.
Well, to connect also with the other human being.
But I like that. You said that in the beginning. It caught my attention.
Right,
I really like that.
Right. Well, it's to connect is actually, it's the peace beyond understanding too. I mean, however, let's say that the human connection in trying to find how to solve our problems, like what's the right way to do this or do that, or how do we solve this problem or that problem as a species, that connection will connect us to the conventional reality and conventional truth. Yes. But when we can actually have that deep empathy for another person's suffering, that's more like the connection to the limitless compassion when it's really deep, and particularly when the suffering is something that we haven't experienced ourselves. We're experiencing it through another, and so we then make that connection to the compassion for the other. So what I want to get at is that this issue of right speech and free speech is not an issue that is simply about the words we say. It's about a path of wisdom. And wisdom comes naturally to people when they've opened this ability to speak in a way that aligns them with truth.
Right.
And
the freedom of that.
Yeah, once you've got it, it flows through you then. And so,
and that is like a definition of freedom. I mean, that's to be free, to be in full expression in that way.
And you feel confident.
Yes, and then you also feel very relaxed.
Yes, you feel confident because you're
confident.
You're in touch with something.
You're not in conflict.
You're not in internal conflict. Right. You're in touch with a wisdom that's deeper than you. It's not personal.
Right.
It's
exactly.
not personal.
It's not personal.
So, when people want to align with these deeper wisdom functions, where they want to tap into the unity of the world and so on, right speech is actually the path to follow, because it aligns you with the truth in the conventional world, and ultimately also the ultimate truth, because if you are aligned in the conventional world, you're more available to these experiences of ultimate truth.
That's right. And that seems to be the crisis we're in. I mean, it's so complex what we're in right now, but the chaos is the fact that people can't freely speak. I've never experienced anything quite like it.
No, I mean, we're being censored at so many levels.
Yeah.
And I want to get into our Constitution and why it aligns in many ways with the Buddhist ideas about speech. But let's go through, first of all, about what it is to abstain for these kinds of... So just to talk about first, abstaining from slanderous speech, from harsh speech, and from idle chatter. Slanderous speech is obviously saying something about somebody behind their back.
Uh-huh.
Where you slander them, you're not. So if you were slandering somebody, you don't do it to their face.
Right, and you're creating harm by doing that.
You're creating harm that they don't know about.
Right.
So you're hiding it from them.
Right.
But you're saying it to somebody else, so you're creating a harm that they do not know about.
Right.
And so that is the thing we just talked about in an earlier podcast about women going around each other.
Oh, that's true.
And not speaking directly to each other.
Right.
So slanderous speech is based in part on the unwillingness to go through conflict. And I think people often don't understand that you're willing to say something negative about somebody, but not to tell them directly what it is that you have to say to them or where you disagree with them. So slanderous speech is one of the things that you need to abstain from, and so it would be a good idea to have creative conflict instead of talking about people behind their backs. The other one is abstaining from harsh speech. This is a lesser issue, but harsh speech is divisive. When you're speaking to the person in a situation where you're creating some kind of division between you and that person that's unnecessarily divisive. And so instead of saying, well, help me understand what's going on, you do the calling out, you do the criticism, you start out talking with them about what they did wrong or what their faults are. That is like the harsh speech category. So all of the calling out culture, all of this cancel culture, all falls under harsh speech. And so you can actually, from the point of view of free speech, from the point of view of right speech, you can speak to somebody about their faults without it being divisive. And then the idle chatter one is the one that, again, most of us, have problems with it.
Yeah, it's like what they say to gossip.
Well, no, it's not. Like gossip is like slanderous.
Ah.
Gossip is slander.
So
where you're gossiping negatively. Idle chatter is like saying, oh, look, the weather is so nice today, and isn't it wonderful out there? Or just chattering when you have no particular reason to chatter. Just the chirping along of, ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta. My feeling is that when this came into practice, the idea was that you really should remain within noble silence as much as possible. And I think that the Buddhists that put this into the rule book here weren't really thinking altogether about the necessity of people chirping to each other. And so the chirping, I think as long as the chirping is trying to make contact, what I call, just like this familiar, hey, how are you doing?
Or not wasting energy, or
nice
not
day.
Taking energy away from somebody else through your idle chatter.
That's right, exactly, right. But actually wanting to make contact, that's not really idle chatter. Idle chatter is when, you ask somebody something like, how do you do this on the computer? And they give you like the tour guide of the entire computer, before they get to
you fall off your chair and they don't notice.
Right, because they're not actually speaking to you at that point. They're just chattering on about.
Right, well that makes sense. Yes, and that's it's a distraction.
And it's a distraction, and everybody breaks it. And so, those three rules, we haven't yet talked about the first one about lying, but the three rules of speech are, is it true, is it kind, is it necessary, are the three rules that you ask yourself before you speak using the right speech precept. The is it necessary is the idle chatter one. Is it necessary to say this right now?
Yeah.
And so that asks you, are you going to speak idly? But again, I feel like that one you can take a little bit lightly. So the slanderous and the harsh are problematic in terms of kindness, and also the slanderous speech in terms of talking about someone and harming them and they don't know anything about it. So then the very first guideline of right speech is abstaining false speech. That involves a lot of discernment. You have to.
Would that include lying?
It includes lying. It includes lying and all levels of lying, and people are actually naturally always lying some, because people are trying to arrange various things and so on in their own lives.
Yes.
And the Buddha also was very clear that you don't you don't use this in a harsh way. In other words, if somebody says, what do you think of my blouse? You don't say, well, that's ugly, just because you think it's ugly. Even if you yourself believe that's ugly, you abstain from saying that. You change it slightly and you say it's a nice color. Or that's
or you could use a little bit more color.
Right. Well, yes, you could say that. Yes, that's right. Because that's not a harsh thing to say to the person, and it's not a lie either. Right. So when you're in a situation where telling the truth would actually hurt or harm that person, you find another way to speak the truth, but you don't lie. Right. But that's not the issue that of the truth that is the most important truth. The truth that is the most important truth, and the one that is the most important not to lie about, is reality. So as soon as you get into lying about anything that has to do in the conventional world with the imperfectibility of the world, the impermanence of the world, or the vast and precise interdependence of the world, as soon as you act like those things aren't true, you're actually violating the right speech. So if you act like, for example, human beings can perfect their health and never die, or that they shouldn't ever get sick, or that there is something that can be done to change our organism so that it's not a part of the interdependent, dying world, which is the world is always coming into life and dying. It's always doing that all the time.
The human being again, the full range of being a human being on planet Earth.
Well, yeah, and if you act like you can get out of that, so that this whole transhumanism thing, which is in trying in some way to perfect the human and take the human into the ideal.
And that's AI and that whole world.
It's a whole bunch of stuff. It's everything from internal robotics and AI to censorship to surveillance. And a whole lot of things are coming in right now that if you speak about them as though they are really good, you have to really think deeply about what it means to be in samsara. I mean, because you can easily violate the principle of speaking truth by assuming that a human intervention can perfect space-time. It's like the part of the problem is that samsara is a mix of life and death, and it's a mix of good and bad. All of the new non-dual things are happening here simultaneously, and we humans don't like that. We would like it to be just the way we want it. We would like to have control, but it is not possible. That is not possible in this particular world. We are in, let's say, a dimension or a world or a dynamic in which we are not the controlling features. We're not the show here. We're part of, but we're not controlling. So as soon as we enter into this environment that we're entering into now of transhumanism, all of us have to be very careful of actually doing research on things like 5G, 6G, surveillance, vaccinations, the nature of censorship, and what is happening to our culture and society from the point of view of samsara. Is this an attempt to perfect something that cannot be perfected? And so in that way, not so different from the idea of the Nazi final solution, that somehow we can perfect the world here by manipulating it genetically. That was the last time when people were really trying in a
or get rid of anything that interferes with that.
Get rid of anything, that people think they wouldn't like.
That's right.
Like illness or death or whatever is sort of the idea.
Right.
Instead of learning how to be conscious of it, learning the equanimity with it, and learning the boundless compassion that comes from being in contact with the things we don't like. That's kind of the teaching. So again, within the right speech idea, the Buddhist teaching is asking you to create an environment where you check on your speech before you say something, to check. So, for example, if you don't know something, like you don't know, let's say, what is 5G? Well, I don't know. That's fine to say I don't know. I don't know. So, okay, well, do you want to find out? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to find out because maybe I don't find that interesting. That's fine. All of that is fine. The thing that would not be fine to say, oh yes, that's safe. I'm sure it's safe when you don't know what it is, you know. And so again, we're in this territory now where a lot of technology is coming in.
You want the dialogue to be there.
You want the dialogue. You want to be able to ask about it, but also you don't want to overspeak about what you know. If you don't know if this is safe, or if you don't know if something, you don't know what the ingredients are, then it's fine to say I don't know. But don't act as though, you know, it's fine, it's safe if you don't know.
If you don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I used to talk about organ transplant this way because having investigated a lot about organ transplant, I began to understand that it's a very complicated thing. The organs, of course, have to be taken from people while they're still alive. And then they have to be transported under certain circumstances. And who's doing that transporting and who's selling the organs and so on. It starts out to sound like a good thing that you're going to give your organs to somebody else, supposedly when you die. But once you look into the particulars of it, it's a different kind of thing. So, you know, it's a good idea, if you're going to talk about organ donation, that you find out what it is all the way through. Then you can speak truthfully about it. But if you don't know what organ donation is, then don't advocate it as though you know.
Exactly.
So that's really sort of the line on that. So these speech rules actually are asking us to really be careful, and it's not just about not lying, but it's about being able to speak.
It's having, you know, again, the guidelines of values, again, that support being fully human.
Well, being able to speak the truth
being
as
able to
a
speak,
human.
and to be able to investigate what the truth is for you, and
That's
then
right.
to work to embody it or practice it or take care of it.
Right, and to do that in a way that will lead to to further development and to wisdom.
Exactly.
Instead of to acrimony and opposition and division.
Exactly.
So,
oh my goodness.
So right speech then has these particular characteristics that can be summarized in the questions: is it true, is it kind, is it necessary, that you can ask yourself before you speak. But then on the larger level, on the more important, you could say transcendent level, involving wisdom, you have the issue of truthful speech being the parallel to internal wisdom, that it's the outward opening up of the possibility of wisdom. So let me just say one more thing about wisdom. Wisdom is embodied by beings in space-time. So, you know, the dog has his wisdom and the cockroach has his wisdom and we have our wisdom. For humans to embody wisdom, they have to be aligned in their speech. And then that wisdom comes into your speech. You don't have to think about it in advance. It comes to you because it's available in the, I don't even know what you want to call it, collective unconscious, the Alaya Vijnana, this collective mind that we participate in, what Donald Hoffman would call conscious realism, you know. And in order for you to tap into that, you really do have to be careful about discerning what is actually true. And once you're comfortable in doing that, you relax and the wisdom comes. Yes, right, so and the word, we've talked about it before, is prajna, and that's the highest perfect wisdom. The prajna paramita is coming from the ultimate truth, but the prajna, everyday prajna, that wisdom, is the way my teacher defines it, is the bodying forth of knowledge. And so humans body forth knowledge. We carry it in our bodies, and if our bodies are aligned with the truth, it comes out in our speech. So that's the idea.
Yeah. So a little bit like what the monk was saying about the heart and right speech, in terms of when you have right intention.
Well, all of this comes automatically once your speech is aligned. It just comes through you. It bodies through you. So this whole thing of right speech from a Buddhist perspective is a very, very important precept. It's very important to understand it and then to practice it in your speech. And of course, we've talked about real dialogue in that regard, and maybe we can come back at the end to talk about what real dialogue is. Yeah. But so let's talk then about free speech. And free speech has to do with the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Well, I mean, just having being educated, in the Eightfold Noble Path, just also becomes such a guide, a guidepost. It's very helpful to remember that, when you then step back and you look at what's going on in society and what we're up against every single day and on all aspects through social media, through all our news, we're nonstop with it isn't right speech.
No, it's not right speech. No,
it's not free speech. It's very, very, very divisive and conflicting and confusing and all of that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a platform or a foundation, the confusion's greater.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one reason why I like teaching the Buddhist approach to right speech and then thinking about free speech in that regard is that a lot of the conflict about free speech that's around at the universities, that's in corporations now and so on, is about eliminating or limiting what's called hate speech. And so the right speech actually eliminates hate speech. From the Buddhist perspective, the entire thing of hate or enmity or animosity has to be understood as an eternal law, that you can never solve it by hate. You cannot solve animosity or enmity by hate. It can only be solved by non-hate.
Right. And that's an internal process, isn't it?
Well, it's both. Also, it's the way you deal with others as well as the way you deal with yourself.
But it's helpful to start from within.
Well, and others too, because, the Buddha basically, in the Dhammapada, he says if you go around complaining and saying, oh, he beat me, he slandered me, he stole this, he raped me, he did that. If you keep on doing that, then what you are generating is hatred. And hatred will follow you everywhere.
Like negativity.
But if you don't say those things, then hatred, it will be non-hatred that follows you. So if you don't make these accusations about the other, if you have difficulties, you speak the truth, you speak it kindly, and you say only what's necessary. And so in that way you create the path of non-hatred. The path of non-hatred is not necessarily love,
right? But
it is actually the path in which you can inquire into the other person's experience. And so it is a path of equanimity. You have the ability to relax enough, to align yourself enough that you can actually find out what the other person is thinking, even if you completely disagree with them.
On a foundational level, again, I was raised as a Christian, a Catholic Christian, but we were taught not to bear false witness.
Yeah.
We had these precepts in a different way.
It was the Ten Commandments,
The Ten Commandments,
right?
Yes,
right.
And those became, when I think of as a young person growing up, those, it helped me to remember that when I was in conflict or when I was caught by negativity or where I could have done harm if I didn't if I wasn't more aware.
Right, it was a guideline, it was a map to follow, and so you could.
So I didn't want to sin against myself or another,
because it was good for you and it was good for others.
Big one for me
as
a young person.
That's just,
it's very similar.
Not lying,
That's right.
except that the Buddhist instructions go far beyond
yes,
not
they do.
lying.
Yes, that's right.
They go
that's
into
right.
the subtleties of speech and the importance of right speech being the sort of portal to truth, which then becomes the actual path of enlightenment.
Thanks so much for listening. And to continue the conversation, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find past episodes of the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Castbox. Enemies from More to Wisdom is recorded and produced by Chris Coltrane.